Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Trading View update. Been a while since I've done one of these, so we'll have a very quick look at the overall macro picture of where Bitcoin price finds itself, and then we'll zoom in a little bit more and see how we can actually look to trade the current price action that we're in. What we will notice is that Bitcoin price has continued to move lower over the last couple of months as the macro situation in the world is not improving. We're now very close to the bottom of the logarithmic growth curves that we've been keeping an eye on for several months now. Is this the bottom? Is one of the kind of main questions that we keep looking at. One thing to notice is that we are definitely in oversold territory. 12 weeks essentially of red, where only two of those have ever so slightly been green, is unprecedented in crypto. Same can also be said for the equity markets, where we've had similar sort of aggressive sell-offs taking place. What we'll notice is that for the first time now since December 2018, the weekly RSI is actually in oversold territory. Historically, these sort of levels have signaled at least some sort of price reversal and have tended to indicate that the bottom is in. Also looking at the volumes, this is the Bitstamp exchange. Volumes here looking somewhat smaller, but what we actually need to bear in mind here is that prices were, when we had these higher trading volumes, these trading volumes are in Bitcoin. Back here, prices at $800, down here at $150. You move a lot more Bitcoin at a certain price level to see these huge spikes. Now, with prices trading at 20,000 but less Bitcoin being traded, you can you get the image that the overall notional of trades that are taking place in the market are on a similar level. Also looking at the Bitcoin super cycle indicator, it has indeed actually now flashed a cycle bottom. It also historically correctly predicted cycle tops. It's correctly predicted previous cycle bottoms. The only thing that it didn't do was kind of catch the all-time high back in November. Again, kind of lending an idea that we are potentially in an extended cycle before we move higher. Now, all of this is not to say that we cannot move lower. It is very possible that we do indeed still have another leg down, just given the overall macro picture that we are in. So just be aware of that. For now, we have seen a pretty sharp move down below previous all-time high. Not unexpected, given the fact that we didn't have that same sort of blow-off top as we have had in the past towards the end of the cycles. Historically, those blow-off tops, where the majority of the cycle move takes place, in the past, those moves higher have been so big that even with an 80% pullback, we haven't got anywhere close to the previous all-time high. This time round, we haven't seen that blow-off top, that 80% correction, taking us back below the previous 2017 all-time high. Looking at how prices have actually developed here, how these legs down have behaved, we can see that if we actually take the fib extensions from the 23rd of January and the 30th of March and extend those down, where are we? Oh, I need to go on the other graph. Let's take this one. Taking this, looking at the Fibonacci retracement here, it's actually been a fantastic way to actually see where prices have found their initial support. That first real leg down coming in at 1.618 before moving sideways again. But then again, that next drop down taking us down to the 2.618. Really kind of nice price action here, where we are now holding the levels. Where do we go next? We've got a couple of thoughts on this. The first one we need to look at is this 200-week moving average. Historically, again, if we just take a quick zoom out, this has kind of been the level where prices have bottomed in the past. On the longer charts, you'll see that this actually comes up really nicely up in 2016 as well. Now we are in a place where we're stuck below the 200-week moving average, and we're above that previous all-time high. If we take short-term kind of trading ranges that we're in, we need to kind of identify where we currently are. I'm just going to put this on the 1 hour. On the 1 hour, we've got the 200 week up there. So we can kind of draw out these kind of short-term range that we're currently trading in. 17,765 just being the low of that range, top of the range coming in at 22,900, middle of the range here at 20,300. If we recall that the previous all-time high is in and around 19.6, something like this. It's somewhere around here. So how do we actually trade this? What we could be looking at is, if we continue to chop sideways, which is more than likely, I don't anticipate any aggressive move higher anytime soon. The way to look at this is to try and take positions when we actually move above, test this local top, deviate below and move back lower. We've had this once before. We know we came up, we tested that kind of range high. Prices got squeezed in between the 200-week moving average and this all-time high, dropped below, moved down, found support off the middle of the channel, and then we had that first leg down where we're now trading back above. Similarly here, it's interesting to see what we kind of want to look at as an example. I know that hindsight is makes things a lot easier, but if we just take a look at what happened here, if we take what we say with the idea that we either move higher, test this area of resistance, trend below, can't bounce higher, and then we start moving lower. So we can also say is if we dive into this area of support in the middle with the previous all-time high, move up, retest that area, and then we move off, that could be a good opportunity to go long with stop losses somewhere down here as an invalidation target. If we see what actually happened, we'll look forward, prices developed, moved a bit higher still. They then came into this area in the middle, held as support, moved higher, came to retest it again, and then we actually started to move higher again. And that's kind of what we're looking at now. We're struggling to break through 21,800. Again, we're kind of in the middle of no one's land here. We're in the middle of the upper part of this range. So it might be prudent to actually wait to see where prices move. If we start to move higher here, if we fail to break out through this area, we can retest this several times and start to move lower. Potential good opportunity for a short. Conversely, if we're moving through here, hold this support once again as we did here, and move higher, that might be an opportunity for a long. We do, given the macro situation, it's likely that we'll probably test this area one more time. In which case, ideal way for this to kind of ideal entry point would be if we actually break below this, come back to test it as resistance once more, and then move off lower, something like this, where your entry is then kind of confirmation of prices moving lower following the retest. If we move on to Ethereum very quickly, Ethereum tends to move in the same sort of fashion over the long term as Bitcoin. That said, let's move out a little bit first and see where we actually are in the Ethereum cycle. You can also kind of draw Ethereum's logarithmic growth curves on this chart. Again, at the lower end of this cycle again. Currently just testing the waters, trading sideways. What's interesting with Ethereum is that we're actually back within the range from the previous bear market. We're trading below the previous all-time high. If we draw out the kind of longer term range that we're currently in, we can see this is it, where we've got a definite potential for prices to revisit the middle of this range, at the very least at around 753. Not unlikely in our eyes, especially if Bitcoin continues to show weakness. But within that, there is even a smaller trading range that could be worth looking at. Let's zoom in onto the 1 hour as well. Make this a little bit clearer. Ethereum seems to be a little bit more defined in terms of the trading range that we're in. If we take the short-term range here, we can see that we've got the top. Currently coming in at around 1,280, which already was tested for the second time now. Previous all-time high is up here, somewhere around here, about 1415. Again, similar sort of story. we could argue that the entire middle range or kind of barrier here coming in as that support area, and we've seen that beautifully here as well, with prices coming down, testing this area as support, moving out of it, coming back to retest it one more time. There's your entry for your long before we then move higher, profit taking at this level. At this stage, looks more likely that Ethereum may actually trend lower again. Potential stages for entry, similar sort of scenario as we saw here if we see a successful holding of this. Alternatively, if we actually start to move below this again, test it as support, test it as resistance, and start to break away, there's your entry for your short with your kind of initial price target to take profits in and around 900. With the current market situation, sharp increases are unlikely. We expect to see sideways trading action continue to take place over the course of next weeks. Overall, the trend, without shadow of a doubt, is still bearish. But again, let's take this away, zoom out a bit. We are still bearish, but macro indicators, at least from a technical perspective on Bitcoin, there is an argument to be made that the bottom is in. If we do test those lows one more time, for those long-term investors, could be fantastic buying opportunities in preparation for the next bull run. That's it from us this morning. Have a good trading day.